hope that catastrophe could be averted. That is, until we discovered dark energy. In the late 90s, astronomers discovered that the
Morning. This, I believe, might be Radio 5. It's somewhere between 3 and 5, and I couldn't be asked to check. Uh, I'm having phenomenal luck as of late, and I have also started a different approach in my spiritual work. I have specifically asked the universe to bring me good stuff. I haven't left it to the universe to solve and then be on my merry way. I have specifically prayed using the traditional prayer format for good outcomes. And I have also switched my thoughts around a little. I have changed how I help people, and I have confronted some dark things, and I have made some light work, and so on and so forth. And the universe seems to be rewarding me. In September, I got 7,000 of my loans forgiven. There was a thing that went to court, and it was ruled in my favor in this case. And the loans were forgiven, even though I know for a fact, based on the judgment dates, that they shouldn't have expired this soon. So it was some kind of personal choice. And I had to do a reevaluation of my pension due to the state requiring it. If you are on a condition that they think is 100% debilitating but is possibly temporary, they ask you to get a doctor's evaluation every 6 months to a few years, and then they evaluate your notes with their own staff doctor, who says whether or not they outright agree with the diagnosis the doctor is giving. And I also have access to all the papers that they exchange, if they exchange papers, or rather my doctor's notes, the things pertaining to me. Using a Freedom of Information Act Finnish equivalent, I could get all my papers from the state, but I am hoping not to do so. It is doable, but without any effort, I have access to what the doctors say about me from my side, and their decision, and so on and so forth. Their doctor had no objection. He also said that I would not benefit from state-run reintegration help programs, whatever you want to call them, and that my progress seems to indicate improvement of the situation, as I have clearly put out a signal of improving towards the doctors. I have made out an outline of how I am doing and how it is going. We have a treatment plan, as they say. There is a plan to get from this point to the point that we both agree can be called healthy. And the doctors have said several things about my development. And just as I initially feared, your diagnosis can indeed be down-tuned per your improvement. In that, if you go in with schizophrenia and you improve steadily and without fault, your schizophrenia diagnosis is turned into a non-organic psychosis or something similar. And they are slowly down-tuned so that once you are, in the doctor's opinion, healthy, you no longer get the diagnosis schizophrenia, which is exactly what I was afraid of, because every media doctor says that this is not the case, but every fiber of my being from my reincarnation timelines knew that that was the case. And based on what I've seen here with the doctors in the hospital when I was initially diagnosed saying that I have schizophrenia, to the doctors now, 3 doctors actually, saying that I have a singular non-organic psychotic episode, which is not sufficient to diagnose for schizophrenia, which also aligns with what I read online about schizophrenia, which is that it can only be diagnosed with repeated episodes. If you have a singular episode, no matter how bizarre behavior it is just psychosis. And if your psychosis doesn't uh, return, if your weirdness doesn't return in that, and this is what the doctor said is very important, your ability to differentiate between your view, which is what other people consider hallucinations and such, and the public view, and how those two need to interact with one another for you to be a person. If you can conceptually realize that, and your public appearance is at least okay, then the doctors really have no interest if you think you're God. They don't. They'll just go, huh, religious. They have no idea of it. They have no desire for it. They only estimate whether or not based on what they hear about you and what you say. Mostly they hear from the nurse, but they occasionally do are allowed to do checkups by calling your friends, your relatives, and so on. But that is rare, and I have not had that happen to me. But mostly based on what they hear from the nurse explaining, because you see the nurse 10 times more than you see the doctor. And the general gist of it is if they think you can survive out in the wild in society, you have the ability to hold down an apartment, you have the ability to pay your bills, no matter how bizarre your life is, if it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother them. I have gone to great lengths to explain to the doctors my alternative healthcare career, that I'm a shaman, I'm a spirit worker, and so on and so on and so on. And their general response has been, huh, can you pay your pills? That's basically it. That has been their response. They have been very uninterested in exploring anything resembling traumas, desires, talk therapy, uh, general decoding of my beliefs, trying to convince me of atheism, trying to convince me of religion, all that stuff. They have been utterly uncaring of it. It's it's not that they don't believe it. It's just not relevant to your status as they view it. Their interest has solely been to basically gauge how well I can do in society. And the fact that I live at a homeless shelter type place, it's an apartment building that has individual apartments and you pay rent and the hallways are converted into social areas, but it is your normal apartment building. And there is a nurse there, and the nurse talks with the staff, even if I don't, and knows from that my condition, in that if I suddenly appear to have a psychotic episode, which I haven't, but if I do, the nurse will talk to the staffers, and when the nurses from the place might call, which sometimes has happened, or inform the staffers here or talk of my status here, they would be informed that something is up. So in a way, I am under constant surveillance, in that if something very weird happens, they will know. But if it is normal, nobody will care. And after 2 or 3 years of living like this, they have concluded that yes, it was a singular episode and I am now normal. And I have, in my interactions with them, openly stated that I was homeless for 8 years. So don't expect the first encounter with me to necessarily play well with your logic. There is a certain odor to homelessness, is the odor of insanity. They have inquired as to the primary cause of my homelessness, and I have responded that it is relationship trauma. It is a very bad breakup. That was, as far as I'm concerned, the singular reason. And they have said basically nothing. They have said, and that is about it. That was far too hostile. But they have said, if even that. It has been like going to a grocery store, describing your symptoms, and the doctor handing you your bill and your purchase. That has basically been the system. I went there complaining of anxiety a few times, and every time they gave me a show up at this place for possible re-diagnosis at this and this date, and I was like, have you ever gone through acute anxiety? You know? And I didn't feel like I got the treatment that I wanted. So when there was a presidential election in Finland, and in my opinion, he won't be this in public, but in my opinion, the most far right candidate that could be sought won. Essentially, if you view me as a green libertarian, then you would view him as Biden, but me still as a green libertarian who happens to feel that Biden is the worst thing ever, though this would be a metaphor because I don't feel like Biden is the worst thing ever, though I would quell it with the smelling. You're giving off a bad stereotype. Quell it. Shh. It's my job. I belong to the same fucking crowd. Shut up. Don't start sniffing the people, you fucking retard. And act a little more appropriate and know a little bit and have a bit of a spine. Okay, moving on before I get defunded by YouTube. Anyway, the point behind this is that every 6 months or so, the Social Security asks if I still want to be on pension instead of social benefits, which is like what you'd call citizen wage, the standard, or if I want to be on pension, which allows two things. One, I get a little bit more, which isn't enough for the medication. It's for that amount of money, I wouldn't be a guinea pig for the pharmaceuticals. But what it does allow me to do is save, meaning that if I have 100 extra on my account at the end of the month, the next month's income won't be deduced by 100, meaning that I can actually tackle my addiction. Because I guarantee you, if I have to spend everything every month, I can't make a plan. Therefore, I might as well drink. But if I can, I'm not gonna answer that. If I can save and do all this stuff, I can actually get out of poverty. If I can be on pension instead of citizen wage, as it's currently used, which isn't actually citizen wage, it's social benefits. Save if I'm on social benefits. So if I can save, then I can do things like actually start up my own corporation, which I absolutely cannot do on social benefits. I know enough about the system. I'm a politician. Fuck you. But on pension, I can save. And they ask me if I want to be on pension or not. And I respond with, please continue the pension. Then I go see my doctor. We talk for 15 minutes. He asks me to describe how anxious I've been over the past few months. Have I been sleeping well? Have I been eating, peeing, pooing? And, has there been any random splashes of pain? Those are the most important questions he asks, and then he may, depending on how new a doctor he is, because I've gotten a lot of doctors over the year, ask me about the specifics of my dream world. And it is very quickly a very weird conversation because I have a very, very different view as to what we are than humanity commonly shares. But I can separate, due to my training, that from what humanity actually believes. So, I build my own world, but I live in your world. So when he asks me about the specifics of my hallucination, my answer is that no, it doesn't generally bother me. It bothers humanity. It's not something that's striking me. If there is, say, tensions and the possibility of war, and I'm living on one very borderless country, it's not my problem if I get anxious. Somebody else's problem. So no, no problems. We have debated medication sizes. Some doctors recommend raising. Some doctors recommend lowering. And my opinion has been that as long as we stick to a specific dose, I'm okay. So if we lower it, we better keep it low. But if we raise it, the same is kind of true. So my opinion has been that unless the doctors find it appropriate, I would rather stay at this dose or file a restraining order and get off the meds instantly. But failing that, the present norm has been pretty good. But when I described to the latest doctor the drowsiness peak processing none phenomena that I get, that I have described on my channel several times, meaning that for about a month after I get the injection, I get it every 3 months, I feel super friendly and super drunk. And it is very annoying. I have befriended people that I absolutely should not befriend, and I'm not talking about the people who call me. And I have been friendly with people that I should truly avoid. And due to the fact that most of these homeless shelters have a non-disclosure policy, you can technically talk, but making a recording that lasts forever on your own channel about the affairs of this place is a pretty big no-no. So I will just say that I have on the sedatives, the stuff the government gives me specifically, I have been befriending people that I ought to not befriend, and that's not the paranoia talking, and that's all I can tell you. But other than that, the first month is pretty okay. The second month, I feel like what I think they want me to feel like. It feels normal, what the doctors are trying to do. There's a very specific long-term note of normality in it. It is a little bit bothersome, but I understand it. It is to the point of feeling like you need to check against that emotion your emotional reactions to the environment. It feels normal, like you have the chemical of normalcy in your blood. It does wonders to make you progress in society, which in my condition was a pretty good idea, but it is pretty weird. And then for the third month, I feel kind of like I'm crashing, like I'm coming off of something, but I also feel most in tune with people. Like people are pleasant organic signals. I'm in tune with them. They're like towers of beaming joy, coming from the ground. It's what they normally feel like, but they're just, people. That's what the flesh has taken the form of, and their physical bodies give a story of who they are and what they've gone through. But I've written a lot about this. It is a very unique mindset, and it just feels like this may be what I want to be, but I don't like the feeling of coming off of something. And then it's supposed to be taken every 3 months, but occasionally I haven't been able to buy it, and we've had to reschedule, and it's a hassle. And I've gone a few weeks over the 3 month period, and then at the early parts of it, it feels like you've completely detoxed, like you're just yourself. There's like nothing. And I understand that being able to detox is a good thing. So being able to go through the process of having it be out of your system and feeling normal and not having like neurokinetic pains or twitches or something that would indicate a bad medical reaction feels very good. To know that I can go off the meds and it doesn't physically kill me. I don't know about the mental part yet, but it won't physically kill me. And that is a very good thing, because some of these psych meds, especially the earlier heavy dose usage ones, are the types where if you are on them for a long period of time and you do go off them, you'll be a wreck forever. You'll never clear. And that's kind of like a problem with these early meds. They were very punishing, if you will. So after I talked to this latest doc about the 3 month cycle and the fact that for the first month it literally makes me do stupid stuff, and he said that he'll write down makes him feel sleepy, and leave it at the minimum dose and continue normal observations. And he also said that due to how well I'm progressing and that I haven't had the symptoms for 3 years, he's like, the word might be cautiously optimistic. It wasn't in as much those words, because these people are very hard to remember. They're very shiny, but those words were there. They're very hygienic, so getting any kind of memory tag on them through a virus or something like that is very difficult. So they're very hard to remember. People remember through the diseases they share, but that is just me. It's also how FTL works and light communication works, but hey, you'll kill yourself. So, the doctor, the latest one, moved me from the second lowest intramuscular dose at the highest injection interval that we have, which is the least amount of hassle for anybody to go through, which is, during my process, I pretty clearly said that I would prefer the lowest hassle amount. I don't want to go through trouble. It's all a little too much. So we were on the second lowest 3 month injectable. At the hospital, we were at the highest amount allowable for 3 months of oral. And they concluded that I work well with, like, others have good prognosis, but that I do talk to myself. And I said that, yes, I do. I believe, if I recall correctly, there's a faint memory indicating that direction that we talked about it, and I said that I enjoy doing it. In my opinion, talking to myself is very enjoyable. It's like a lullaby. The meds make me not want to do anything, so not wanting to talk to self disappearing is not really an improvement. It also not makes me want to, not do anything. If I'm talking to somebody or being friendly, it makes me not want to stop. If I'm lying down, it makes me not want to get up. That's its function. It's serotonin dopamine blocker. That's its function. See, your mind works by altering an electrical signal with chemicals, which is the stuff your body produces in this case. You have two of these primary chemicals as your neurotransmitters: serotonin, which is wideness or angle of signal. For example, you have a task to do, and if you ask your second cousin's third wife's nephew to do it, you're using serotonin. And if you just do it yourself, you're using dopamine. So if you have the ability to bother others but do with serotonin what you could do with dopamine, you can therefore magically construct things. That is what its function is in the mind. And like I said, dopamine, anything you do that requires what can be considered back and forth thought, doing stuff that goes back and forth. And serotonin is when it makes that fancy web we call a brain or a network or any kind of structure. That is serotonin. Those two mindsets are completely different. And these antipsychotics, they give you block both of those at the same time, forcing your body to use its tertiary neurotransmitters, which are not the ones that reward you for action, but for example, food, love, any kind of emotion that you generally feel becomes a process through which you think. So, since your mind has generated through both dopamine and serotonin this vast networks of true and untrue thoughts, the mind, but its ability to function is lower than its brain's organic capacity should be. There is therefore a reason. So if we block both of these two primaries and your body still functions, we know that your thoughts essentially self-transmitory nature ending doesn't kill you. And then we observe how well you function when your reward doesn't come from your inner thoughts or your mind. And if your actions are still appropriate and you're, for the most part, able to function in a society, you're not, biting people, doing really stupid and weird things, they go like, you know, that one can actually work as a body. Its mind has been completely shut off for 3 months and it's pleasantly chatting with the other inmates and watching TV. That's the thing. So if that works, we can lower the dose from completely blocking those signals. Absolutely complete block will knock you out. So we can see how well it's blocked by how drowsy you appear. We can lower from that and see at what point the basic persona comes alive again. And then we can discuss. We'll see. We can gauge how it responds to waking up in the hospital through various, let's say, pre-examples. Medicine is basically not in as much the learning of facts, but learning of examples where you have a very long list of how many times this specific thing has occurred. That is medicine. In for the most part, you learn that not in as much humans is the heart on the left side, but you learn that for these types of variants of the entire human genome, these combinations most likely produce heart on the left side. And that is kind of also not true, but very close. So, yeah. And because it's a very long database, you don't lose your accuracy because somebody adds 5 years worth of data to the database. Because each new method only contains certain percentages more in the likelihood of survival. And if you are a doctor, you're always by default, by the fact of being a doctor, learning new things about medicine. So when somebody discovers a new method and you don't learn it that weekend, it doesn't make you a bad doctor. However, if you don't learn it or have an interest in learning it when you get a patient with that, then that might be a problem. Dr. Mike on YouTube has expressed something in his words about there being family physicians that I like. He is very naive, very new in his field, but he's learning. I take my hat off to his 10 Things Alternative Healthcare Taught Us video. I give my hat off to him. His wording might have been different, but that's how I read it. There were things like using duct tape on sealing of wounds when you have no other things. Doctors have actually adopted, I believe, the method under a specific name in medical community. Things like honey being helpful in certain infectious conditions. I think alternative healthcare should be applied before you go to the doctor. In that, before you have a condition that requires a visit to the doctor, you should take the alternative to healthcare, which is to keep yourself healthy. So before going to the doctor, you should go to the alternative healer. And in this case, it should be you. Now, after the doctor says something, you should take them at their word, but you should seek out somebody who is a specialist in alternative healthcare and consult them, because legally they cannot change you or take you off your meds, so the danger has passed. What they can do is go through a similar long list of other people they have seen with similar conditions and meds and prescribe for those. And one of the methods we got out of that was probiotics, which was very hard for the medical community, and that is that there is healthy bacteria. So giving antibiotics isn't a silver bullet. It isn't always healthy and in all conditions if given under, say, toxic limits, but will kill healthy bacteria called probiotics. And the understanding that when you are given antibiotics, you kill your stomach bacteria, meaning you should take oral probiotics, is like the medical equivalent of a 2-year-old coming to a broken leg with a band-aid. It is a start, but it requires an immense amount of work from this. And eventually, if this works the way I think it was designed to work, doctors will become the avatar of death, and alternative healers will become the avatar of birth. So when you need a disease killed, a cancer destroyed, a similar thing, you will go to the doctor. When you have a broken leg you will go to the healer. And that is, I believe, the transition based on how they're dealing with disease, especially visible in their prescription of antibodies. If you need some motherfucker killed and he happens to reside in you in any way, you're the doctors. You go to the doctors. They will find it regardless of what it is and they will kill it. They will not adopt it to another family to be kept healthy. It will be killed, period. Now, if you want it to live but not around you, you might want to go to a healer. That, I believe, is the difference. If you find a tumor, instead of cutting it out, the healer will convince it to move to a person where it can reside as an organ. They may not cut it from one host to another, but some might actually do that. And they will honor it as a persona, like unto Star Trek's Trill. And then eventually we'll have Trill Homeworld. Trust me, that's how it goes. But if you want a thought pattern ended, you will go to the doctor. That is the difference between the two. One will make you healthy, and one will kill the things that harm you inside you. You will realize the value of both, I believe. I believe we are seeing this with surgery and internal medicine. It is not as visible there, but we are seeing surgeons develop into the most peaceful warriors, in that when you have something that you need to combat inside you, but not specifically kill, but combat, though that does come into conflict with the fact that they amputate, but that they cut as the most peaceful person who has to cut. So you know that when you are in the street, your option is either fixing yourself or getting wrecked. You go to a surgeon. And that looks like a healer to the icon of death struggle again. And returning to the pension point, I have been very lucky after I started randomly praying here and there. I have done it 3 times now. And first result was my debts getting repaid. And I randomly prayed about a month ago for some good outcomes. I have recorded these on YouTube. And the 6-month evaluation just happened, which took me a long time to explain what we were talking about. And when it happens, they put you on Social Security for a while, but because it's smaller than the pension, once you get on the pension, you apply for the period you were on the Social Security as well, because otherwise you would regularly legally drop back to Social Security and thus wouldn't be on pension. And they pay you back for the period if after their evaluation you are still on pension, but it takes some time for the decision to come in. Mine was 35 days, and they have to pay you back for the period. And I don't know their math, and I'm not going to say it here, but I'm getting a nice bundle. And that means that all my debts, except for 100 in doctor's bills, have been repaid down from 7,000 3 months ago. And 3 months later, I get this nice bundle, and total's looking pretty fine. Pretty fine. It's looking like a doctor's wage in net, with no student loans at 37. Now I need a way to wash this income. something that's completely legal and depends entirely on the human vote giving to me. So it has to be something that people would like done. So I'm thinking company of some form. And I'm thinking specialization in uh, game testing slash developing, but testing first, and research. So I'm thinking Boink. I'm thinking €300 budget a month from me. I'm thinking maybe I should say how much I got back, but I somehow don't feel it's appropriate. Just just saying that sometimes when they do these things, they miscalculate, and even when they don't miscalculate, when they what's the word, do these back things when you like notice that you should have been paid some benefit way back when, and you didn't apply for it, you have a realistic chance to get it back. And if you really do your math, you might end up doing it well. I mean, when you were technically owed something by the debt, say the debt, the the state, the debt, the debt. No, really, it's a problem with rich states. I guarantee you. Getting money off of the government becomes an entertainment form. It's still very pitiable. I get so nauseous thinking about how little people want to put into the system. How almost nobody who's like an appropriate normal person wants to become a politician. I don't blame them. Every one of them is an opinionated motherfucker. Nah, but really, there's about 2/3, 4/3 of people who are completely silent and never speak during any engagement. So, hmm. Hmm. Joo. En ala pelaamaan mun Darkesta alkan Saksan peliä. Mulla ei ole yksinkertaisesti viitteliäisyyttä tuolla moottorilla. Sotiin jotain 15 vuotta sitten Neuvostoliittoa vastaan. I'm commenting to the Astral in Finnish about the Soviet-German War in 1946 in my timeline. But I decided to fuck that war. The greater German Russian spirit snuffed that timeline out of existence. They fought for 3 months, and Soviets took 3 provinces out of the about 25 of Romania, and the Germans pushed about 4 provinces into the eastern part from the central Polish flatland. That's all they got each in 3 months of fighting. Both sides looked at that and like, that's it, bro. I ain't fighting that one. I'm literally defaulting to the commander-in-chief in that one. And it ain't gonna be me no matter how presidential I am, because I am the military guy. It is absolute folly to keep the military in the hands of the president. It's absolute fucking folly. I can think off the top of my head a single coup scenario by a military against their leader that would be appropriate. If the military intelligence has data that the leader is being blackmailed, they can coup the leader's position to get the leader's agenda and only the leader's agenda specifically done. But I do not know if such a thing can be called a coup, but if it is, the legal term for it should be. Where they technically discharge the leader of any responsibility and go absolutely apeshit. If they know that the leader is being blackmailed. Any attack on the leader itself is not grounds. Only blackmail, and only in such a case by the, let's say, intercepting chain. Let's call it that for this reason. I'm getting some flack for calling my proposed high school degree a thesis. I'm thinking video 3D modeling and a couple of these simulators that I use to give a good data set of what my prediction with the tools that I have gives me with some commentary, but not much, just showing the outcome at like different settings. Focusing on Masters, Fate, okay, Power and Revolutions, and there are a few others, but I can't name them, I think. Can't find the words, they're not on the tip of my tongue. There are a few simulators that allow you the chance to do this kind of simulation. Stellaris was one. And I'm thinking that sounds like an emergency rescue evacuation truck. And calling it a thesis. Doing all the simulators that I need to get a accurate replicatable world of my simulation and having some kind of way to turn that into environmental data. So we have a cross-dimensional telescope with two known objects. You know, the optimum that I'm building, which you are perceiving as the coronavirus, I think, and the general worldview, how they view each other through a telescope, not a magnifying device, but a telescope. That would be very interesting. Then you can take the data that I give you about what that DNA does and make a variation of it yourself. Put it into whatever your data set is and analyze it with your own results as the other end and prepare for my probable outcomes. And then chart and possibly lean on the outcomes that you want. That is the purpose of spreading DNA, or RNA in this case. DNA is different. This is very specifically RNA. Requires to be plugged into something to be used. Can be viewed as without plugging in. But very specifically, before anything can be done with it, you need to plug it in. Viruses are like a random door-to-door guy selling you WMDs. Some of your cells are depressed enough to go that shit. This means I get to kill everybody within a 10-mile radius? Fuck yeah! That's what some of your cells do. That's why they get infected and some don't. A lot about keeping your cells happy. Keeping your suicide bomber count low. Friend has a radio. Put my own music on. Or rather, random chiptune radio. Thinking of a very good chiptune song, but I couldn't remember it, so I have to put a random on. This is not nearly as good as the song was. I don't know that. If I verbalize that in this particular place, I'll be murdered. Um, No se on semmoinen. Winter! Oh no! I'm gonna go sleep in bed. Damn it. Now somebody has to wake again. What are you doing? Hunting for vampires? Yes, they're still dead. I missed the ventilation. Se rauhoittelee esillä. Mulla on päivällä heitellä kaikki roskeilta esiviet. Kauheet. Hyvä tällaista. Annetaan kansalle just se minimi, mitä ne haluaa. Sitten loppuun laitetaan siihen, mikä kiinnostaa. Kuuhu. No ei nyt sinne mennä. Kiertoralle kyllä. Ensimmäisenä. Mahtavaa. Ison pommi. Mahtavaa. Rikkaan kaupunki. Mahtavaa. Sitten kun se ei kiinnosta, niin se ei tapahdu vittu ikinä. Mitä ei tapahdu vittu? Sitten kun kiinnostaa, niin johan saatana tapahtuu käyttö. Jos sä haluat jonkun teknologian halpaan massamyyntiin, niin etit, missä se on Yhdysvalloin sotilaskäytössä, teet oikein vitusti propagandaa siitä, sit venaat 3 vuotta, niin venäläiset valmistaa 100% hinnalla. Se on ihan paras tapa dekoodaa sotilasteknologiaa. Ei ole niinku mitään parempaa. Sitten meet ihan jenkkien perään ja siitä jos joku teknologia kiinnostaa, niin yrität lahjoa jonkun tyhmän poliitikon jollain 100 miljoonaa laittamaan itse vaikka 10 miljardin tarjouksen siitä, että joskus joku jossakin ostaa, niin siihen käytetään 100 miljardia kehittämään. Katot vaan kaukaa. Sillä se toimii, kun aina jos yksi sua isompi tekee saman kokoisen, niin se tekee 10 kertaa isomman. Niin jos sä saat se vaikka 2-3 kertaa nousee sen latauksen jollain yhdellä latauksella sinne alemmalle, joka oikeasti tekee ne isomman duunit, mutta ei saa niitä sen palkkoa. Niin sehän kuule nousee. Hetkessä hysähtää sieltä, jos sä laitat vaikka tonnin jonkun nousevan poliitikon, joka tekee vähän sen vanhemman niitä duuneja jo, niin PR-edustukseen siitä, että se tekee sulle duunia jonkun asian ajamiseksi. Niin pääset mahdollisesti sillä tonnilla sen asiassa, saat sillä että ne esittelee puoli tuntia vaikka jollekin kuvernöörille sitä. Sun ei tarvii mennä sinne Flappy Bardinkaan, vaan sinne menee ne, mitä se nyt kiltisti sanoisi, jotka sille yleensä sanoo, että tässä on nämä ehdotukset, suosittelemme kaikki, ja sitten se laittaa nimet alle. Se ei mene niinku toisinpäin, että hei, mulle tuli tämmönen hyvä idea joltain kansalaiset. Jos sä niinku tiedät, että sulla on joku keksintö, joka vie 10 miljardia, niin saada markkinoille ja hyötykäyttöön, niin jos sä osaat sitä verkkoa pelata ja sulla on joku muutaman tonnin alkupanos jossakin, joka lähdet investoimaan eteenpäin, niin ei siinä montaa vuorokautta mene, kun sä saat ne rahat, jos se on hyvä juttu. Jos sä vähänkään osaat puhua ja tunnet ihan pikkasenkaan politiikkaa. Sitä ei tarvitse paljon tuntea. Se vaan lähtee liikkeelle. Nyt mä oon miettinyt tuolla, GNR:llä, kun se näyttää, että se toimii, jos ne saveit vetää sillä hyvin. Sorry, I'm talking Finnish, but I'm gonna continue in Finnish. Niin jos ne saveit vetää hyvin, niin mä oon miettinyt sitä, että laittaisi 2040, kun se peli alkaa 2020. Se edellinen alkoi jostain 2010, niin se oli 2030, eli oletetaan edelleenkin, että me tähdätään 20 vuoden hallintokauteen. Niin jos sinä aikana saisi sen ensimmäisen kotimaisesti tuotetun ja kotimaisesti hallinnoidun avaruussatelliitin tehtyä maata kiertävällä radalla, niin se olisi hyvin. Koska se maksaa se pelkkä laukaisualusta niin 50% yhden vuoden budjetista silloin, kun aloittaa. Niin sitä taloutta pitää kasvattaa ihan vitun pitkään. Kansalaisille pitää hommaa kaikkea, että ne keksii ne tavarat, kun ne on muuten niin vaikea saada. Niin se vaatii vitosti vaivaa, niin se nousee vitosti se talous. Simulaation ideana on 2 asiaa. Me ollaan nyt testattu tätä Value Added Tax plania niin Suomessa, mikä on ihan näitä First Worldin kärkiä. Kazakstanissa, mikä on keskisen eli niin kuin Second Worldin laajimpia, eli semmoinen niin kuin oikeasti vaikea valtio. Siellä olisi muitakin, niin kuin olisi voinut ottaa jotain Kiinaa, mutta sitä mä en ala millään tällä simulaattorilla hallinnoimaan. Se olisi muuten kiinnostava, jos tämä simulaattori olisi hyvä. Se piti olla semmoinen sopivan pieni, mutta kuitenkin, että se on niin kuin omanlaatuisensa, niin Kazakstan on se toinen, mikä me hallinnoitiin. Ne rakensi sen uusiutuvan vetyvoimalaitoksen sen jälkeen, kun se hallintokausi oli valmis. Sitten me oltiin ollut poissa sieltä joku puoli vuosi, niin sitten ne pukkasi sen kasaan. Se oli mun mielestä oikein kaunis. Se on niin kuin oikein kaunis aparaatti. Nyt me ollaan Madagascarilla. Ja se on niin kuin third world. Niin me katsotaan, että toimiiko tämä malli firstissä, secondissä ja thirdissa worldissa tämä meidän niin kuin, miten tämä valtio pitäisi pyörittää. Sitten jos se toimii niissä kaikissa 3, niin sitten me pistetään jonkin sortin semmoinen teesin näköinen aparaatti, johon me laitetaan se niin kuin simulaatioparametreiksi ja sitten me katsotaan todennäköisesti jollain ekosimulaattorilla, jos mä en itse kehitä ihan vitun uskomatonta ekosimulaattoria, missä tapauksessa siitä itsessään tulee se teesi, niin mä suosittelen Fate of the Worldia. Mä sillä pelaan noilla asetuksilla suurin piirtein ja katon, mitä se tuottaa. Sitten ilmoitan, että kun Fate of the Worldissa menee 25 vuotta siinä ekosimulaattorissa, niin siitä, että aloittaa sen metsänsuojelun siihen, että metsä alkaa kasvaa. Tuossa PNRssä, niin toi näyttää jotain ehkä 7 vuotta täydellä budjetilla. Niin sitten mä sanon, että tätä pitää korjata ton verran. Ja sitten niin että miten niitä pitää mitäkin korjata. Se HDI:n nostaminen on itse asiassa lapsellisen helppoa. Se on ihan helppoa, kun se niin kun toimii se sun wattijuttu, jos se toimii. Jos se ei toimi, niin me nostetaan kädet pystyyn ja sanotaan, että me ei osata auttaa muuta. Että good luck and Godspeed. Jos se toimii sun yhteiskunnassa, niin sulla on niin paljon sitä hilloa sen jälkeen, kun se työttömyys tippuu sinne 4%, että melkein kaiken, mitä sä oot koskaan kuvitellut, niin sä pystyt toteuttamaan. Jos talous kasvaa 7% vuodessa, inflaatio on 7,5 ja korkoprosentti on 16,5, niin kyllähän se nyt jotain taloudesta kertoo. 3 tuntia kestäneiden eri väestöluokkien välisten neuvottelujen jälkeen päätyttiin siihen, että toi korkoprosentti tiputetaan 15. Sitten jos kaikki menee hyvin sen kontraseption käytön lisäämisen kanssa, niin sitten jossain vaiheessa se täysin rajoittamaton aborttioikeus poistetaan ja samaan aikaan se kaikki ikäraja yhdistelmä hässäkkä tiputetaan sieltä 17 sinne 16. niiden kaikkien muiden parametrien, jotka viittaa siihen, että se aikuisväestö on niin järkevää, että ne osaa toimia, niin sen jälkeen lisätään niille sitä, että ne saa puhua niiden muidenkin. Se bull herd, joka on siellä keskellä, niin sille pitää antaa semmoisia tiettyjä rajoitteita, ettei se mene häiritsee niitä muita. Jos ei se tottele niitä rajoitteita, niin sitten sen kimppuun vaan pitää käydä. Sillä pitää antaa semmoisia tiettyjä, että mitä se saa ja mitä se ei saa tehdä. Esimerkiksi, että se ei saa miehenä mennä naisten vessaan. Ottamatta sen enempää kantaa mihinkään. Siinä oli ne kaksi isoa juttua, mitä niiden ammattikuntien kanssa puhuttiin. Mä katson silmä kovana sitä kontraseptionin käytön lisäämistä. Se pitää nostaa niin kun sen jälkeen, kun asiaa puuteroitiin, niin se 63 niin jonnekin puhutaan nyt alustavasti 70-75. Sitten aletaan puhua semmoisesta kontraseptiokäytöstä, että voi ehkä jopa sillain niin kuin miettiä sitä, että siellä on kädessä. Kontraseptio tässä yhteydessä viittaa siihen, että niiden ihmisten kanssa pystyy oikeasti tekemään kaikkea. Se, ettei se tilanne heti jäivy siihen, että siinä on 100 miljoonaa muutakin. Se on ihan selvästi se kontraseptiofaktio. Ihan selvästi. with ours. No poopy. No poopy is a poopy because nobody can play with the poopy. But no, never mind. Oh God. Oh, so good. Hmm. Interesting. I'm hearing an interesting conversation between the Germans and the Russians in 1941. They're talking about a timeline where the Germans treat the Russians as an individual, not like a people, in that there is a specific Russian person that they are trying to influence to do something instead of a population to do something to, like a person you know that you're trying to influence into something. And in that mindset, in 41, they get into the war and they fight for a very short period of time, and the Germans basically end the war. I believe they overthrow the war thought, and there is no civil war as such. Both sides conclude that fuck that idea. They're not trying to exterminate the friend concept. That's good, right? Ugh, so I'm not gonna translate that one. Ding 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 ding. 500cc halberd into the butt. Squeak. Oh. Nani? Why are you injecting me with LSD and ecstasy? Whoa. I was laughing at my YouTube. Whoa. Ah, trappist one. So, getting into space from a poor nation in 20 years under any condition also works for rich nations, but you know, 20 years to first satellite. Anyway, there is no there is no budget. There is a series of instructions. First among these is the following: increase those taxes which hit also those who are visiting your country. The primary method to do this is to increase the value added tax, which means goods at stores are more expensive to buy. This, based on current markets, will generate an enormous income with very small increases. Use that income to lower the taxation on the low and middle class, specifically income tax, and very specifically corporate tax and employer and employee social contributions. Also, corporate, I believe it was overturned or whatever, but all those taxation forms that hit corporations and slightly bias your taxation policy in the direction that very small companies are tax exempt. And if that works for you, it may not work, but on our data set, it seems to work. Use the money generated from the lower unemployment that generates to basically pay the country to expand. And once you have a large enough country to actually support the launch infrastructure for the satellites, then construct them. But there is no way to immediately do so. If you are a poor country, your unemployment is usually high. If you make small corporations tax exempt, lower corporate taxes overall, and increase value added tax, you will most likely do pretty well. Then, to correspond with the green obligation of reducing your pollution overall, you can institute a pollution tax, which, if geared well, will also profit you quite a lot. But this is niche and may not be true. However, the value added tax to corporate tax transaction in lower unemployment should be true. For every 1 point of corporate tax, value added tax you increase, you should be able to decrease corporate tax by 3 to 5%. Easy. Every one of those should decrease your unemployment by about a percentage point. So 3 points in value-added tax, specifically for corporate tax, etc., lowering would take your unemployment plus marginal unemployment from a total of 9 to a total of at least at the highest 4. And then you could possibly make some money. If every one of those makes double and pays quarter of that to taxation, you will be making in taxation half of what you were losing in social benefits to those, and you will be gaining the fact that you no longer have to pay social benefits to those, which amount to double what you're gaining in taxation. So you will be making 150% of your social contributions if everybody makes double what they were making on social, which is still a pretty low social subsidy and taxation and minimum wage. But if you get the average social, which is about 1,000 a month, it varies, but it's about 1,000 a month. Working a single job on minimum will get you 2,000. That's what that model proposes. The resulting GDP growth will eventually pay for your space program, but that's my recommended start. Then you start your space program by saying to your public two things. You could buy a laptop launch computer and a spy satellite in the next 5 minutes, but that is not what we're going for. We're going for a domestic launch capability into space. So it's a little bit different. Developing the rockets alone is going to take maybe 10 years to get into orbit, and that's foreign instructors and such very detailed helping our domestic industry to develop the methods to launch. For Tesla, it took 6 years, I think. And they were the richest person on the planet developing it at the best speed possible. We're not the richest nation, so forget everything relating to how fast Tesla did it and comparing how fast you're going to do it. Maybe 10 years for one small satellite. The ability to control it plus the launch capability to make it into a satellite container and so on and so forth instead of just engines on platforms and fuel combinations and so forth is gonna be 15 maybe. So if you start in 2021, your domestic space capability is gonna be good enough to launch a satellite into orbit in 2041 if you're not being crack speed. But you can pick any country anywhere that has a population that can support a satellite industry, and it works every time. That's my outline. How to get into space 101. It doesn't matter if you're the most isolated country in the planet. Your black market connections are going to guarantee that it works. It's designed that way. Your domestic consumption is designed that way. You can do it in medieval Japan. That's what the triangulation data sets are for. One uber rich, one middle class, and one poor, roughly randomly selected.
Lisää poveria jouluun. Alle 50 € joululahja. Näissä langattomissa kuulokkeissa. It's alright, you're ready for the night of your life. Stars that shine so bright, they say we're dancing the stress away. This beat is underneath your feet right now. Together we will meet this place, blow your mind away. Welcome to the club now, gonna bump it up now. This is an emergency, music is my energy. Welcome to the club now, everybody up now. We got it going on till the break of dawn. Welcome to the club now, gonna bump it up now. This is an emergency, music is my energy. Welcome to the club now, everybody up now. Got it going on till the break of dawn. So put the record on. feels like sweetly to dance the night away. Welcome to the club now, gonna pump it up now. This is an emergency, music is my galaxy. Welcome to the club now, everybody's up now. We got it going on till the break of dawn. Welcome to the club now, gonna pump it up now. This is an emergency, music is my galaxy. Welcome to the club now, everybody's up now. Got it going on till the break of dawn. So put the record on. Jump.
Got a 100,000 or more watt transmission from healthcare official into alternative healthcare official. They want chiropractic treatments to be available specifically, not exclusively, but with very strong emphasis on exclusivity for sedated people under conditions where if the chiropractic adjustment fails at that time to correct an x-rayable fault in the spine or other similar bone structure, surgery will be used. In the immediate prior last option to that, they will use chiropractic care. But beyond that, due to the risks of it is not recommended. That is from healthcare official to alt healthcare official. It is too powerful to be used without things like heart compressors nearby. Due to the fact that if you do hit that nerve really well when you release it, bad things happen. I am sure. I have had experiences that are unpleasant that should have been done and in my field in a very hygienic environment and a top quality care. It is too unhygienic. There is an attribute to it that requires complete hygiene. And I'm not talking about washing your hands or being in the same cloud. I'm talking of the reality that there might be a need, unfortunately, for white people to have white doctors and black people to have black doctors. It might be necessary to break this little hive cluster we have into individual tribes. Might be necessary. We were hoping that the Nazis' research, which indicated that the races operate differently in biological terms, was wrong. And if it's not wrong, that we could delay its application sufficiently to get everybody safely, basically off planet. And it now seems that on average there are certain things like differences in blood medications that need to be prescribed to black and white people. They have different, let's say, parameters for those medications. Different outcomes if given the exact same medication versus different medications. Better when given the different ones, which means that Even with our top healthcare, it appears that we need specialized medicines, which means species. Therefore, we are thinking of splitting up the Federation.
Spies, and they've already taken heavy casualties. In fact, Gunther von Kluge wants to make a tactical withdrawal, but Hitler issues the order already the 29th. Combat operations in the Velikiluki area are to be conducted so that contact with individual Kampfgruppen can be re-established. A withdrawal to the west is out of the question. This basically means that the Germans are required to continue attacking with inadequate forces and to hold shaky positions. Gruppenmeyer is running out of ammo as well. On the second, attempts to reach it before it is destroyed begin. And on the third, Gebirgsjäger link up with them near Botovo. The men are in dire shape, with just a few hundred combat fit men and no vehicles. They've either been destroyed or they're out of gas. It seems Operation Mars is also running out of gas. Its attacks on the Rzhev salient continue. However, those Soviet forces from 20th Army that cut the Rzhev-Sichovka railway line last week find themselves encircled early this week. Many units break out the night of the 29th, but they lose most of their armor doing so. On the 1st, 20th Army attacks again, but though they do make a hole 8 kilometers wide and 6 deep, they cannot exploit it for the rest of the week. The attacks against the west of the salient, which made real headway last week, do a little more pushing, but really peter out at the beginning of December. The whole Kalinin front's attacks are getting bogged down by this time because they have no reserves, since they're also attacking near Velikiluki. Further south, Friedrich Paulus has big issues with his encircled 6th Army in Stalingrad. From Paulus's perspective, the most important task was to withdraw 6th Army's forces to the defense lines he had designated late on November 27th. No less of a concern to Paulus was the Army's precarious supply situation, which the Army was rapidly exhausting. Paulus also seriously doubted whether the Luftwaffe could make good on its promise of aerial resupply. Now, Erich von Manstein's Army Group Dawn, which I talked about last week, is to somehow make an offensive that will either reinforce or rescue 6th Army. But they can't do that without controlling staging areas, like on the Don River, opposite Rychovsky and Kotelnikovo. So he's going to focus there. Once the Red Army has dealt with 6th Army, they plan to launch Operation Saturn, as I mentioned last week. Its big goal is to destroy the Italian 8th Army and the German 17th Army Corps. Concentric attacks will link up around Milerovo and destroy both forces, then cross the Donets and head for Rostov. The real appeal of this plan is that if it is a success, then the issue of whether the Germans will reinforce or try to rescue 6th Army in Stalingrad is moot. The plans are still on track throughout this week. On November 28th, the 3 fronts that launched Operation Uranus, the Stalingrad counteroffensive back on the 19th and 20th, Southwestern, Don, Stalingrad, resumed their attacks. They are not as successful as the initial attacks were. German 17th Army Corps actually counterattacks the 28th on Nikolai Vatutin's southwestern front's right wing, but they are thrown back. The Soviets there go on the defensive afterwards. Prokofy Romanenko's 5th Tank Army is being frustrated by both German and Romanian defenders along the Chir and Don rivers and still cannot take Surovikino or Rychovsky. He does get a bunch of reinforcements in both men and armor after this, but it takes days to integrate them into his plans. The fighting the rest of November along 5th Tank Army's whole front is inconclusive, though on the 30th, Soviets have created a bridgehead on the Chir. The Axis really have to eliminate this before the Soviets can use it to bring large force over and use it as a staging point of their own to fight off any relief attempts at Stalingrad from the west. But Soviets still do not take Rychovsky, Oblivskaya, or Surovikino. 10 days of combat attrition is a big factor, but also both the German and Romanian defense points on the Chir are pretty formidable strong points by now. As for the Don front, they're pushing east from near Kalach as the German Sixth Army withdraws into the Stalingrad pocket. It's bloody, and they do make some good progress, but ultimately, the combat operations conducted by Rokossovsky's three armies from 19th to 30th of November proved that it would take a major offensive, perhaps commensurate with a full-scale siege, to liquidate Paulus's encircled army. This also meant that the three Soviet fronts and 9 armies operating in the Stalingrad region were insufficient to conduct simultaneous offensive operations along Stalingrad's inner and outer encirclement fronts. Much of the Stalingrad front is actually doing side operations against Sixth Armies south and east, but the 51st Army is heading south towards Kotelnikovo, or is trying to do so. A raid on it fails, and then the German 6th Panzer Division arrives there with more than 150 tanks, and on the 30th, 51st Army goes over to defense. By this time, Manstein's Army Group Dawn has assigned Army Group Hoch what's left of the 4th Panzer Army, plus what's left of 2 Romanian Army Corps, combined into a new Romanian 4th Army, a double job. The Romanians are to delay the Soviet advance on Kotelnikovo long enough for Hoch to put together a strike force to reinforce or rescue 6th Army. Of course, the fighting in Stalingrad itself continues for Chuikov's and Paulus's armies, but the tide seems to have turned a bit, for the Soviets are slowly and very bloodily grinding up the German 51st Army Corps in the streets of the city. So to sum up, the multiple difficulties encountered by all 3 Soviet fronts during the final week in November made it abundantly clear that the way they had organized their forces for combat during the successful penetration and encirclement operation no longer suited the existing situation. So today, the 4th, since the Don and Stalingrad fronts likely cannot destroy the Stalingrad pocket without help, Rodion Malinovsky's 2nd Guards Army is given the job. That is the week, with the fighting on all of the active fronts either inconclusive or not going very well for the attackers. Okay, Reunion Island is liberated this week, but that is such a major milestone in the war. We did a whole special about it. Seriously, I insisted, Sparty insisted, Astrid insisted, and we actually broke our rule about not covering individual battles to cover the titanic struggle for Reunion Island. In Britain, the Beveridge Report is published this week, which proposes huge changes and expansions to Britain's social welfare system. There's also something else that happens this week that I ought to mention. It happens in Chicago, okay? On the 2nd, under Enrico Fermi's supervision, the first man-made, self-sustaining nuclear reaction is achieved. This potentially creates a huge new supply of energy that just grows and grows, and it can be used for all sorts of things, many of them extremely beneficial for all mankind. A little more seriously, we did a mini-series on the Cuba crisis when mankind came close to full-on nuclear war, covering it day by day for 13 days over on our Time Ghost channel. And if you have not seen it, then you are in for a very big treat. Here is prologue number 1. Our Time Ghost Army member of the week this week is Alan Osborne. It is the Time Ghost Army that finances this series, the Cuba series, all of our other series. So join the Time Ghost Army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time.
idea. Just live.
Whoa.
Yep, so that's how your granddad got his back tattoo with hepatitis. Never share a needle with Ben Affleck.
How did you and other granddaddy meet?
That's a story for when you're older.
The kids at school were asking if you're a bottom or a top.
They should not be asking that.
They said if that was your answer, then you were a bottom.
Who are these kids you're talking to? I would like to have a word with their attractive fathers.
This rogue star has been traveling the universe, and now it's finally entering our solar system. But this isn't just any regular star. It's known as a quasi-star, and is one of the biggest stars in existence. What would happen if this star entered our solar system? And how would Earth be affected? This is What If, and here's what would happen if a quasi-star entered our solar system. Quasi-stars aren't just regular stars. They're powered by black holes. The theory is that the original star would have been so massive that the core started to collapse. Normally, a supernova would happen at this stage, but instead, the explosion is absorbed by the outer layers of the star, and a black hole forms at its core. The black hole then feeds on this star for thousands of years, slowly absorbing it. Now, what would happen if this deadly star came toward our solar system? First, let's understand just how massive this star is. To put it in perspective, our sun is the largest object in our solar system at 1.3 million kilometers in diameter. That may seem massive, but it's really nothing. Just 5.2 light years away from us, there's another star known as UY Scuti, which is 1,700 times larger than our sun. Pretty big, huh? But this quasi-star is even bigger than that. This massive star has a diameter of 10 billion kilometers, more than 7,000 times the size of our sun. So yeah, this thing is an absolute unit. And now, it's coming for us. If a quasi-star did enter our solar system, we'd start to notice it much sooner than you might think. This one star would be as bright as an entire galaxy. Not only that, but it would be as luminous as at least 100,000 suns. So the closer the star would get, the brighter everything would appear on Earth. But unfortunately, this star wouldn't just be giving us brighter days than we're used to. As soon as the star entered our solar system, planets, asteroids, and any other objects would likely be thrown out of orbit. This could cause epic meteor showers for us here on Earth. Thousands of asteroids could all end up crashing into our planet. And if a planet were lucky enough not to get thrown out of orbit, it would eventually still get engulfed by the quasi-star. The quasi-star would go all across our solar system. It might engulf Neptune, and then even our massive planets like Saturn and Jupiter.
Pooping there.
It would continue this journey until it reached Earth. Granted, humanity would be extinct by
Thou
this
shalt
point due to the
combine pooping
incredible
there
temperatures of the star,
with Saturn
and then
anus
the planet would quickly heat up.
to make new
Once it hit
planet.
260 degrees,
Poop from anus.
carbon dioxide. Getting hotter at 760 degrees,
Poop
sulfur
on
dioxide
anus.
would be produced. And Earth would continue to heat up until the crust and mantle were completely vaporized, and the entire planet was engulfed by the star. And as if this star hasn't caused enough trouble, it could eventually become a supermassive black hole. This would be after its black hole core finished swallowing the entire star. Okay, now that we have this supermassive black hole, how about we make it fight a white hole? But we'll leave that story for another What If.
Set on anus. You shall combine poop in there. Poop on anus. Poopiness. It's pronounced poopiness. Bananas. So, poop in there. Then combine Neptune and Saturn. Uranus. To make another planet called Poopinus. Minor. No. Toilet. First one is Poopinus toilet, and second one is Poopinus forest. And the third planet when those two combine. Poopinus all over the place. All over the place. Olla pähkinäpuu. Ei voi olla kukaan muu. Siellä se vähän on. Talvihalla. cometh. Please don't murder each other. All right. this is the kind of terrifying I think. Sorry if I'm gonna get blocked again in this video because I'm shirtless, but fuck this censorship. I believe I would have equal, in fact, most likely greater audience if I waved my dick around. In other words, moved all of this shit to Pornhub. As I said, I'm a gamer and I like to play without my shirt, but that's about it. And then I would upload these videos. Like hundreds and hundreds of hours of me watching and playing various things. People would comment, was good, just and I would laugh. More so than people offering sex via cyber exchange. Winter storage.
Ih, baca mengauni.